Hello, my name is Bella Ulier, and this is my project on food deserts for my economics class. I do want to note I am a little sick, so I apologize if I pause the video. I don't want to cough and just have that throughout the whole video. And I also did this project alone, so just noting that. So, my abstract. What is an abstract? First, it's basically a synopsis of my research, my what, how, and why, all formed into a very short and cohesive, typically paragraph. So, my goal was to find out if and why DeKalb would grow as food insecure and why these areas would be labeled as a food desert. And I picked this topic for personal reasons. I grew up poor in Texas and struggled with health issues such as being overweight due to that. And because of this firsthand experience, I thought it would impassion me to work harder on the project, as I don't prefer math. It's not one of my key subjects. So any kind of personal addition that I can make really helps me work on these kinds of topics. So, my hypothesis. What do I think before I really start looking into it? So, before the project, I've had experience with food deserts, obviously, when I grew up, and that led me to understand the underlying issues that it causes mentally and physically in people that might not be so obvious. And I'm also a history major, so I understand the long history of issues that hunger can cause in people and how it is greatly influential to how people think and behave. One of the biggest examples is the French Revolution. Hungry people are never happy. Let them eat cake. Famous quotes. And then my hypothesis was that DeKalb was growing in food insecurity, and it was due to political and social events, and because of DeKalb's growing and fluctuating population due to being a college town. I think because of that, there's a sort of disconnect between businesses because they see DeKalb as more of a seasonal area. So my methodology is the way I went about research and how I used this research and how I felt about it. So my methodology was empirical, which means that I used real life data and maps to form my opinions and research. I used the United States Department of Agriculture's Atlas for food access, which is extremely helpful in showing changes in food insecurity throughout time. And then I also used methods that I've used before in social sciences, such as English when we're doing a research project, or psychology. And that was looking back at conversations I've had with people and their honest opinions on what's going on. I feel like that's a really important method of research, especially in math, because math can seem so impersonal sometimes. So hearing a person's experience with not having access to food can make it feel more human. And then food desert. So the first thing you have to understand is what a food desert is. So the United States Department of Agriculture was my pick as the trustworthy source for how to define a food desert and how to look and compare areas. And DeKalb is in the Department of Agriculture's regulation requirements. They are an urban setting because of being a college town, And so I use that as my baseline, as my understanding for the whole map, because the whole area of DeKalb is described as urban. And when you look at other college towns, such as Champaign and Normal, they're also described as urban, even if you might not typically see them that way. Like DeKalb is in a rural area, but because of the college town, of the college campus, it makes it urban. And then DeKalb's demographic was really important for me to understand, because demographic is everything when it comes to economics. We have a sort of stereotype for a reason. A lot of people fall into the demographic that fall into the same like category as their demographic. And based off of the Census Bureau, the median age in DeKalb is 25, which makes sense. A lot of people move here for college and then maybe have to live here after for a few years as they maybe finish a graduate program, or I know we have a lot of master's and PhD students as well. And then the median pay is roughly $24,000 a year, which once again makes sense as it is a college town. This means a lot of the people here are working part-time or seasonally, which means that they don't really have the time to have a larger gross pay. So I also wanted to include the diversity that we have at NIU. We have a lot of international students and people of color, which makes us the perfect demographic as a vulnerable community, as we are young, poor, and we have a lot of people of color. So those are 3 of the key features to a lot of areas that have food insecurity, as young people are less likely to have experience shopping and financing a loan, and also they have a heavy burden of tuition on their shoulders. So DeKalb's food insecurity in 2015. In 2015, DeKalb's food desert consisted of the area surrounding Highway 88 and most of NIU's campus. This makes the most sense as that demographic is vulnerable to food, as it would be the college students. So this area is downtown DeKalb, and this is right where the NIU campus is. And then this is following 88, which is more of the off-campus housing. And then you compare that to the food insecurity in 2019. So in 2019, DeKalb's map of food insecurity is notably larger, and a lot of that is growth to the north and then a slight growth to the west. These areas connect all the way up to Sycamore, which was not seen before, and it withholds a majority of the NIU campus. But as you can see, there is a slight division now that I circled. This is where a grocery store was installed, and now people in this 1 mile area have access, and it is labeled as food secure now. So my map conclusions are: the map is not subtle, and DeKalb has grown more food insecure with each year. The area of insecurity is increasing up the north area and completely diminishes the security gain that's in the center of NIU, because while it is great that the people that live near downtown NIU can go to a grocery store, a lot of those apartments are a lot more expensive, and a lot of the people that live there are not as financially insecure as people who live on off-campus housing, which is where a majority of the food insecurity is, because there are no grocery stores there. And this did make me question why college towns and why it's getting worse if more people go to college. Because if more people go to college, you would think that on a business standpoint that the demand is there, so why would you not supply it? Especially because colleges are not quiet, the students are not quiet about complaints about food halls and fast food and, you know, gaining weight their freshman year, the freshman 15. All of those things are very popular and known, so it's very confusing that a grocery store would not want to move into a college town. Now I wanted to get into the political influence and the power of confidence in both the seller and buyer. So in both economic classes I've taken, this one and my macroeconomics class, confidence has always been a very large theme to a lot of the graphs and fluctuations that happen in the economy. Because if a seller has no confidence, then it will not grow because it will not want to risk the stable sales that it does know it can get. And if a buyer has no confidence, then they don't want to buy anything. They don't think their dollar is being used correctly, and they don't have confidence in the quality or quantity that they're getting. So Donald Trump is the epitome of using your political influence, not for good. So Donald Trump was able to lower both sides' confidence through continued political online disputes about countries' economics, extreme lawmaking and backtracking, and the decrease in assistance given to those who need it. So his political disputes include being on Twitter before he was banned and saying horrific things about North Korea, China, Vietnam, all of which could majorly affect our political and economic stability. And then he also is known for his extreme lawmaking and backtracking when he finds out it's not legal or logical, which also makes people less confident that they'll be able to purchase things, because what if something happens? What if he makes some new law that no one even thought he could make? And then he also decreased the assistance for people through decreasing the amount of people who are allowed to use SNAP. This is where we talk about SNAP, the confidence killer. Donald Trump lowered the range of people who could get assistance by SNAP. SNAP is a program that helps low-income families and people buy groceries. By lowering the assistance, it caused more people to become food insecure and vulnerable, and it also makes it difficult for people who are already struggling, as they're not struggling enough and should become self-sufficient. If you look at the United States Department of Agriculture's note on Donald Trump's lowering of assistance on SNAP back in, I believe, 2018 or 2019, they say that it is to push people to become more self-sufficient, as if people who need assistance are just using others. Not only does this language lower people's resolve and ambition to grow and gain, but it also causes them to blame themselves for an economic situation that might have been unavoidable. Many people in the US are one situation or event away from being incredibly in debt. They're one medical event away, their car breaking down, they're something in their house breaking, a pet getting sick. All of these are examples of ways that people could instantly become in debt and need assistance. And those are unavoidable things. And these words really hurt people and hurt their passion to grow, because they think it's their fault anyways. They're just gonna stay there because it's their doing. They can't change. And so this is my conclusion. The area of DeKalb is growing more and more insecure each year. With a growing population that is lacking support, more and more people are finding themselves traveling even farther for nutritious food. My solution would be a small, monitored 24/7 grocery store to reduce food insecurity, allow access to everyone regardless of their schedule, and bring more employment to the community. This is because in my previous class in English, we had to pick topics in DeKalb that we were passionate about, and a majority of the people picked issues including the food hall and not having access to food. So a grocery store that's open 24 hours a day would allow people of any schedule, working people, people who are in classes all day, people who have to work night shifts, all of them would be able to get food regardless of their schedule. And it would also bring employment to the area, as there would need to be multiple shifts as it's obviously open 24/7. This would not only lower the health issues such as obesity or malnutrition in DeKalb, because people would have access to healthier foods, but it also supports students in growing grades and lower crime rate, as being fed leads students to making smarter choices with a healthier brain and stomach. People are less likely to cause crime if they're not hungry and if they don't need to cause crime, and people are less likely to make silly choices or lower their grades in classes if they're not focused on where their next meal is going to come from. And that's it. Thank you so much.